Well, as Luke said, thank you all for coming out. I've had a really great summer. I've been able to learn a lot from Luke, and it's been a really great experience to work with Republic County Economic Development, and I'm very grateful to the Dane Hansen Foundation for making this possible. It's been a really great learning experience, and it's a lot of good stuff that I'll carry with me going forward, so I'm excited. So just to kind of get right into things, in the beginning I was doing a lot of building off of 2019's work. Last year's intern, her internship was a lot more architecture focused, more developing potential models of housing units and things like that. And this year we kind of took a step back and we're like, okay, we have an idea of models that we could implement hopefully someday, but what's the demand? What are people looking for? What kind of people are looking? And so this year's internship was a lot more marketing focused. And so I just about trying to match the needs of the community with the assets that are here. And so the main objectives were to review the previous work that had been done and then develop an existing housing marketing plan, but also a housing resources marketing plan, and then also create a housing market demand report. And so you can kind of see that there's been a lot of work done so far. The first couple weeks of my internship, I was going through every single one of these things, just really trying to get an idea of what's gone on before I've gotten here, what was done last year, just really trying to build up that knowledge, because there really has been a lot of work done and there was a lot to learn. And so something that was super helpful was also the Ben Winchester webinars. He's a rural sociologist and he does a lot of work in rural housing, and so going over those webinars but also reviewing previous work that had been done in other rural communities such as Norton County, Lincoln County, Stafford County, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But yeah, the first couple weeks of my internship, that was really the focus of it, was just to dive as deep as I could into the material and figure out what was going on and where I was coming in and what we were going to do moving forward. And so these are some of the existing resources that are already in the county. And so for those of you who live in Belleville, you're probably familiar with the nuisance abatement program. And that is really just trying to combat blight in the community. It's done through an outside, unbiased agency. It's people who are coming in and just doing more code enforcement, just really trying to combat blight, send out letters to people how to improve their properties and just to kind of improve the curb appeal in town. And then there's also the land bank that was established in Belleville, that was established last year. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, that is really just kind of an extra arm of the city, kind of gives them the grounds to kind of take control of a property and put it back into development where it can be utilized, where it's not sitting vacant, or it's not sitting, with a dilapidated building on it. And then also the NCK home ownership program. If you guys follow us on any kind of social media, you've probably been seeing me promote that all summer. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit later as well. And then we also have the neighborhood revitalization program and also the North Central Regional Planning Commission household winterization program. And so kind of moving into the next objective, one of the big things that we really wanted to work on this summer was to develop the existing housing marketing plan. And so another one of the kind of initial things that I did was I combed the RCED website to look at how we were currently marketing, rentals and homes for sale, and how people were finding out about that. And we also looked at other economic development websites in Kansas, other rural economic development websites, to see what they were doing and kind of also use that to help improve our website. And so I took all that information and then applied it to our website and just tried to make it more user-friendly, straightforward, easier for people, especially people coming in to find housing and things like that. And then the next big project was generating a countywide survey to kind of assess the demand for housing in the county. Anybody who's listened to me, I've been talking about this all summer, but it was really fun, and kind of looking at the results and the statistics has been really interesting. And so I'll kind of get into that a little bit more here in a little bit. And then the next big thing was holding meetings and phone calls with housing stakeholders. And by stakeholders, I mean, landlords, realtors, lumberyards, things like that. Anybody who deals with housing, what they see from their perspective. And we also got a lot of really helpful information from that as well, so I'm excited to go into that as well. And then we launched the very first Republic County Home Expo. That was modeled off of something that was done in Lincoln County. It was a countywide real estate open house. And we kind of modeled it a little bit differently, just with the way things are going this year. It's obviously not a normal year, and so I'll also kind of go into that a little bit. And then just throughout the summer, doing a lot of social media posts, emails, promoting the survey, our home expo, and just kind of general information about housing in Republic County. So the first big project I really want to talk about is the Republic County Housing Survey. And then the thing on the right is just kind of one of our general promos that you'll see if you visit our website or anything like that. And so who we were trying to target with this survey is anybody willing or wanting to move within, to, or outside of Republic County. And why we were doing this, we wanted to know, what's in demand in terms of housing. What are people looking for? How do people find out about their housing? And how aware people are of their different resources that are available to them. And so moving on with that, one of the first things we ask people is what do you like about Republic County? What do you like about living here? Or if you don't live here, what do you like about it that makes you want to live here? And one of the most popular answers was rural. And I put that in all caps because I absolutely was so excited reading that, because a lot of times people look at rural as a disadvantage. People say we don't have the big city shopping or the big city access to things, and that's okay. And so seeing that people like to live in rural and that people are viewing it as a strength is really encouraging. And people like the small town living. They like that rural communities are more safe and family oriented, and the low cost of living and the good school systems. And so that was something that I was so excited to see, because a lot of times you see the negative connotation with rural, and that just kind of shows us that that's not true at all. And so that was really cool. But on the flip side of that, we also asked what people dislike about Republic County. And one of the main things was that there was a lack of jobs in certain industries. And I don't want to say that there's a job shortage, because there isn't a job shortage. In areas like healthcare or education or agriculture, those are jobs that are in really high demand. But in certain professions or more professionalized kind of settings, that might not be the case for some of those people. Like architecture majors or people with architecture degrees have a really hard time finding that kind of work out here. And then also, of course, the housing shortage. That was the focus of my internship this summer, and so I was not surprised to see that. And then, of course, the daycare shortage, distance from big cities, lack of shopping, and then small town cliques. And so getting a little bit more into the results of the survey, we asked people, what town do you live in or near? And the largest group of people was obviously from Belleville. We weren't really surprised with that. Belleville is the largest city in the county, so we weren't really surprised by that. But something that I thought was really interesting and encouraging was that 20% segment of the pie that you see right there is from people that live out of county. And when we were looking at the survey done last year, only about 5% of people who took the survey were from out of county. And so this just really showed that we did a great job of trying to reach that population, and it also showed that people who live out of county are interested in moving here. And then it kind of gets smaller, and the rest of these smaller slices of the pie are just smaller communities in the county. And so that was really cool. And we're still getting results, and so it's still kind of changing a little bit, but it's kind of rung true to this model kind of throughout the whole time that it's been live. And it's been live since I think like June 15th. So. And then this was another thing that I really had a lot of fun putting together, was where are people taking the survey from? And as you can see, there's people interested in moving here that don't just live in Kansas. I mean, we had someone from Billings, Montana take it. We've had people from South Dakota, Oklahoma, Nebraska. But then we've also had people from big cities in Kansas take it. There's been several people from Wichita, Manhattan, Topeka, Kansas City who've taken it. And even though there's only one dot on the map, there's probably at least 5 people from some of those places who are taking it. And not only are they taking it, but they're expressing interest in moving here. And so that shows, especially in times of COVID, when people are doing a lot more remote work, that there is a demand for people to come out to rural communities and do remote work, because they can still do the same work, but they can have the better quality of life in a rural area. And so the next thing we kind of wanted to look at is what industries are people employed in who are taking this? And overall, the top 5 industries, and most of these probably won't be a surprise, but were healthcare, agriculture, education, government, and manufacturing. But then we also split it up into, okay, who are the out-of-county people taking it, who are moving in, who are going to be needing jobs, who are going to be looking for housing. And it's pretty similar, but it's a little different. So we had agriculture, healthcare, people who were retired, people who worked in finance or government/legal. And then we also asked, please indicate the number of people in your household, because we wanted to use this to kind of help us gauge, okay, how big of a household are people going to be looking for? Obviously, the more people that live in your household, the larger of a house you're going to be looking for. And there is a pretty large cohort of people who are living in a 1 or 2 person household. There's 13 people who are living in a 1 person household, but there's 16 people living in a 2 person household. even as you get in the 3, 4, 5, and 6, there's still a large number of people who are living in a household with more than just 1 or 2 people, and so those people are going to be needing bigger houses that are just more than 1 or 2 bedrooms. And then this was another thing that we thought was interesting, because we're like, okay, it's great to know, how many people are living in a household and things like that, but in terms of, the numbers, what can people afford? And so the top kind of group right there is talking about the median household income for Republic County, which is just right at $48,000. And if you break that down, and a general rule of thumb to determine what people can afford is you should not be spending any more than 30% of your income on housing. And so applying that model, that would calculate out to be about $1,200 a month in rent or mortgage payments. And then per capita, if you apply it to that $28,901, it would be about $722 in rent and mortgage payments per month. And so we looked at that and we're like, okay, how does this apply specifically to people who are taking the survey? And so we found that people who are taking the survey actually have a little bit higher of an income, quite a bit higher of an income, $84,544. And so that means that they can afford more expensive living arrangements. And then even per capita, it means the same thing. $35,100, they're going to be able to afford a little bit more expensive of a rental or even a house payment. And why we're kind of wanting to look at that is because looking at all of the homes on the market and also rentals available, we wanted to see, okay, out of what's on the market right now, can people realistically afford that? And as of right now, going through all of the rentals and all of the homes on the market, the average number is about $100,000. But if you take a step back and look at homes that aren't on the market, the median value of owner-occupied homes is $62,800. And so what that shows is that there is a very big gap in between what is already owned but what is on the market. And so this shows that there's probably more of what people want on the market versus some of this housing stock that's probably a little bit older. But there's a gap there because people who are living in these older homes are not going to be used to be paying for more expensive homes. And so it's just interesting to kind of see that gap and to see, okay, this is what's this is higher in demand, but a lot of times the income of people doesn't always support something like that. And I'm happy to answer any questions, because I know once you add all these numbers in, it can be very confusing. So if anybody has any questions in the end, I'm happy to answer anything. And so moving on, while we were looking at the income, we were also like, okay, what are they currently living in? And about half of people are either living in a 4-bedroom home that they own or a 3-bedroom home that they own. And then most of these are people who are renting some kind of thing. And why we wanted to look at this is we thought, okay, people may be living in something, but they may not be preferring to live in that. And so on the flip side of that, we asked, what kind of housing do you prefer to live in? And this shows that there is a discrepancy in between what people currently live in and what they would rather be living in, and showing that not everybody is content with their housing. And so, and just kind of a breakdown a little bit more, ages 30 to 49, they overwhelmingly prefer to own a 3 or 4 bedroom house, but not all of them do. Some of them only own a 2-bedroom house, or some of them may rent, but they would really rather prefer to own a 3 or 4 bedroom home. And then ages 50 plus mostly prefer to own a 2 or 3 bedroom house. So that shows that as people are getting older, they have this interest in downsizing, but then these younger people have this interest in, I guess, upgrading, but there's a lack of move-over housing for older people, and so older people are living in houses that could be occupied by families, but they don't have that move-over housing in order for families to come in and move into these new homes. And then we also asked, are you currently searching for housing? Because a lot of times, a lot of housing marketing is a little bit under the radar. People aren't always super obvious about what they want to do in terms of selling their house, because some people only want to sell to people they know, or something like that. And so we wanted to look at that, and we asked, out of those in the county who want to change their current housing, 50% of people are currently or somewhat searching for housing, and they're kind of struggling to find options. And then out of county people moving in, 65% of people from out of county are currently or somewhat searching for a house in Republic County. And so it's showing that there is a demand to move here, but there's not always that housing stock to support that transition. And then we also asked, are you interested in building a home? Because we found that there is a high demand for people to build homes, but a lot of times people don't have the income to support that, or around here there's not a lot of resources for people to do that. And so of those who said yes or maybe to building homes, 73% were between the ages of 21 and 45, and 51% of those people were also between those ages and also married. And so what that shows is that a lot of times when people are married, their household income is likely to be higher. And so this is a more accurate number of who could realistically build a home, but then you also have to break it down into, okay, income levels and things like that. And so it just shows that it gets very complicated, and it's a very multifaceted process, and it's not very straightforward at all in terms of, you know, you have to consider income, you have to consider household size, you have to consider jobs and things like that. And so it's just very complicated, and that's why not a lot of homes are being built, because it's not an easy process. And then this one, I understand it's probably kind of hard to see, but this was probably one of the most interesting things that I found from the survey. So on the left here, we have, how have you heard about homes or rentals in Republic County? And then on the right, we have, how do you prefer to hear about homes or rentals in Republic County? And for the most part, you can see that these match up pretty well. You know, the radio, 19% of people say that that's how they've heard about it, and almost 21% say that that's how they prefer to hear about it. And same with Facebook, realtors, it kind of matches up. But what is interesting is that almost half of people who answered this said they hear about rentals by word of mouth, almost 50% of people. But if you look at how they prefer to hear about it, it's only about 24%. And when I was looking at this as an outsider coming in, it shows that the process in trying to find either rentals or homes is not very democratic, because people who market by word of mouth were usually burned by bad renters, or only want to rent to someone they know, or someone that is a friend of a friend or something like that. And so for me, being an outsider, I think about if I was trying to move here, I would have a really hard time trying to find housing here, because I don't have a lot of connections here, and I wouldn't have somebody to vouch for me and things like that. And so it's interesting to see that, because there's obviously a very large gap in how people are hearing about it, but how they actually want to hear about it. And the same can be said for Zillow too, not to as great of an extent as what it is for word of mouth, but it just shows that there is a gap in how people are learning about it, but how is more convenient for them to learn about it. And so just some major takeaway from the survey results so far, and some of these might be me repeating, but there is a very high demand for 3 to 4 bedroom homes, especially for younger families or families between the ages of 30 and 49. But on the flip side of that, there's also a demand for move-over homes or move-over housing for people who want to downsize. And if those people are able to downsize, it would free up those 3 to 4 bedroom homes for people who are wanting to move in. And what's nice about the move-over housing is that could also double as a starter home for maybe somebody new to the community, or a single person coming here for a job, or a young couple. And then, as I said, there are gaps in how people prefer to learn about homes or rentals and how they actually learn about them. And then the last thing I kind of reiterate is that there are gaps in people's current housing and what they actually prefer to live in, and that gap is largely due to income limitations. And then just to kind of give you guys a break from all this information that I'm throwing at you, this is one of our survey flyers that we use to help promote it. We printed these off, we put them all over the county. I'm sure you've seen them. We've used it for social media promotion. It was a lot of fun making that, and just to kind of get a break from, you know, digging through the statistics and things like that. And so that was one of my favorite things that I got to work on. And then here's some more just general survey promo. These were 2 of our more popular ones. The one on the left, the red one, was targeting Republic County or Pike Valley High School alumni who are wanting to move back. And then the one on the right, we were using to target grandmas because, you know, once you think about it, a lot of young people aren't asked, do you want to move home? And so we're like, you know, we know that there's grandmas who want their grandkids or their families to move back, so let's ask them what they think. And so these were really fun. They got a lot of traction on social media, and so it was cool to see that. And then this right here is a direct mailer that we're actually working on, because we are having some trouble reaching the 65 plus population. And so we thought, okay, if we design something that people are going to get in the mail, that they're going to have a physical copy of, that's probably going to reach that population better than what social media would, or emails, because a lot of times people 65 plus aren't on those platforms. And so this is something that we've worked on. We're also using it to cross promote the census, because the census will provide very helpful data about housing as well. And as of right now, Republic County is only at a 60% response rate. And then there's also some communities that are only at like a 30% response rate. And so we're hoping with this we'll see some continued results, and that'll be helpful not only for our survey feedback but also for the census feedback. And hopefully this will be something that gets sent out at the end of this week or early next week. Okay, and then the next big project I work on was findings from meetings with stakeholders. And so the three main stakeholders that I've identified are realtors, landlords, and lumberyards. And I have spent all summer contacting them, some in-person meetings, some on the phone. I'm just really trying to dive in, what do they see from their perspective? Because a lot of times we don't ask them. A lot of times we ask the people looking for housing, but a lot of times the feedback on the other end is just helpful. And so the first one that we talked to were realtors. And we found that, like I said, there is a greater demand for people to move from urban areas to rural areas to do remote work. And especially this year with COVID picking up, people are wanting to get out of urban areas. People are wanting to come to rural areas. And so it was encouraging to hear that and I guess feel validated in that. And then also people are moving to be near kids. As we sat down and talked with some of the realtors, we were finding that the majority of them, the reason why they were selling their homes was because they were moving to be closer to kids. But not only that, there's also people coming in who want to move to be closer to kids. And then kind of going off of that, people under 45 are more mobile. A lot of times the people who are moving in are typically younger families, and the people who are moving out are older people who are kind of wanting a downsize, wanting a kind of quieter way of life. And then the last big thing we found is that there is no master list of rentals. And again, I think of this as someone coming from an outside perspective. If I were to come into the county and try to look for housing, I would have been completely lost because there's not a good way to find, who's renting what apartments are available, what single family homes are available. And so we used a list that we got from one of our area realtors that he was just kind of putting together to maybe give to people that were hoping to own a home someday, but it wasn't a viable option for them at that time. And we've been working on building that up all summer, and we're currently finalizing that, and we'll hopefully have that finalized and it'll be publicized for people to look at. And then the next stakeholders that we talked a lot with were landlords. And it was really interesting to hear from them because, like I said, we don't always hear about housing from their perspective. And so one of the big things we found is that there is a very big lack of market rate rentals. And for those of you who aren't familiar with housing, market rate rentals are just rentals that do not have any kind of income limitations. And there's a very small percentage of rentals in the county that are both open and market rate. But what we did find is that people are unaware of what they qualify for, and there's a big lack of understanding about Section 8 and Section 42 housing units. And so we found that there's a lot of available Section 8 or Section 42 housing units in the county that are just sitting empty because people who could be living in those, who qualify for those, are currently living in market rate rentals that are being rented at a lower rate, which is prohibiting working class people who don't qualify for Section 8 or Section 42. It's preventing them from being able to move into those market rate rentals, and then Section 8 and Section 42 units are sitting empty. And then we also found that landlords struggle to recover from bad renters. And as I've been kind of saying, most landlords market their property by word of mouth because they have been burned by bad renters and they don't want to rent to people that they don't know. And so it kind of just creates this broken link between people looking for housing and that there's being a demand for housing, but people aren't able to find housing because a lot of people aren't willing to tell them about their housing units. And so the last stakeholder that we talked to was lumberyards. And it might sound weird to some people that we consider lumberyards a housing stakeholder, but these are people who are doing a lot of the renovations or even the home building work. And so we found that most of the work that they are doing is renovations because it is very expensive to build a home. On the lower end, it costs about $150,000 to build a home, and that's on the lower end. Most end up being $200,000 or more. And so most of the renovations that they do are around $30,000 plus. And then we also found that age is not really a factor in terms of housing, in terms of building new homes. We found that a lot of people from all ages are building homes. And that's something that people don't always think about because a lot of times people think of younger families as wanting to build their forever home, and it's not like that. And we've actually found that a lot of times it's older people who have been working their whole lives and who have saved up income and who are now in a financial position to build a home. And then we also found that there is less than 5 new builds per year between the lumberyards that we've talked to in town. And that's actually probably on the higher end. Most places, or both lumberyards, said that they probably only do 2 to 3 new builds per year. And then lastly, we found that lumberyards are kind of having to just serve as more of a role than just a lumberyard. They're having to be kind of a general contractor due to informal roles in rural areas and the cost increases of construction management. And not only that, but they're also having to kind of serve as this broker when they're referring people to, okay, here's a good person to do HVAC, here's a good person to do electric, here's a good person to do plumbing and things like that. And so they're having to take on a lot of roles, and it shows that they really care about their customer service, about their clientele and their customers, but also shows that they're having to take on a lot of roles that that we're lacking in other areas. And then just kind of another breakdown of rentals in Republic County. I was saying earlier that there is a lack of market rate rentals, and the census lists a total of 575 rentals in the county. But through our stakeholder meetings, we only confirmed around 230 rental units. And this is from me calling people, emailing people, talking to people all summer. And so this helps give weight to what we have been saying about how the marketing for rentals is often very underground, and people are not openly advertising their rentals. And out of these units, only 27 out of the 230 are available, and only 52% of these are market rate. The rest are either Section 8 or Section 42. And then overall, only 6% of the rentals in the county are both available and market rate. And so it just really shows that there is a gap in what is in demand and what's available, and it just helps give weight that housing is a problem here and it is hard to find.
So the census is 2010 data?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, and then here is just kind of a housing life cycle graphic, just to kind of show that it's a very broken cycle. If you think about Republic County, think about, okay, what is here that could serve as a home for a younger person moving in who is new to the area and who maybe just got a job here, or maybe a young couple. Think about that kind of housing, but how that housing could also double as someone who's wanting to downsize. Then you think about, okay, what about housing for a family that is a budding family or a little bit larger of a household? And really what this is trying to show is that it's just a broken cycle, and that we're kind of skipping steps, we're kind of leapfrogging from one option to another, and that it's not a very easy transition for people. And even looking at this, it's confusing, and it's just a very broken cycle, and there's not a direct link for, okay, a starter home, then a larger home, then a downsizing home, and it's not like that. And it just helps showcase that for somebody who is wanting to come here and set down roots and things like that, it's hard to do that. And so this right here, I won't go into this too much, and if you have, everyone has a handout of this. But this is just to kind of help break down the differences between market rate rentals, Section 42 rentals, and Section 8 housing, because it is confusing, and a lot of times we find that the reason why a lot of Section 8 and Section 42 units are sitting vacant is because people don't understand that they qualify for those, and so they're living in market rate rentals instead. And so you can kind of look at this in your physical copy, and if you have any questions, I'm also happy to answer those as well. Okay, and then the last kind of big segment of this objective was the Republic County Home Expo. And this is probably my favorite project that I got to work on. It's been really fun and really encouraging to help people market their properties, and then getting phone calls or emails about people saying, oh my gosh, especially from realtors, we're getting so many more views on our website now that you've started this expo. And so it's cool that we're able to help promote that business, and that this really is this showing positive results. And we modeled this off of the Lincoln County Economic Development countywide real estate open house. We did ours a little differently, just with COVID picking back up. We did not do an open house, but rather we said, okay, you submit your properties to us, we will oversee all marketing duties, and then we will turn this back over to realtors or homeowners to schedule listings and schedule showings at their discretion. And so we had a total of 15 homes participate, which we generated $500 in listing fees that helped us with the marketing. We had both Blecker Realty and NCK Realty participate, and then also a couple out-of-county realtors and also private listers. And we designed a Google map of all participating homes. And what we were really excited about was that we had homes from, I think, 5 or 6 different communities in the county. And so it wasn't just isolated to, Belleville being the bigger city. I mean, there are homes available in other areas of the county. And so that was cool to see. And then we have a web page that's still live of all the participating homes. And then we've continued marketing avenues on newspaper, radio, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Facebook event page, and we also do boosted posts on Facebook to kind of target some more out-of-county areas. And then this is just a flyer that we created that we put out around the county, just kind of an explainer and just use as a promo for people who are curious about it. And then these are some of the more marketing materials that we used on Facebook. These are all homes participating in the expo, and then here's this home again, but also all of these pictures were taken in Republic County, and we've gotten some good traction with those. It's gotten some good following on Facebook, so we've been really excited about that. And then these are some of the newspaper ads that we created. So if you've been reading the Telescope or the Cortland Journal, you've probably seen some of these, and these will continue to run until the end of August in conjunction with the NCK Homeownership Program. And then so along with marketing the existing housing stock, we also wanted to market the existing housing resources because that's equally as important in terms of people who are wanting to buy homes. So the ongoing promotion of the NCK Homeownership Program and the Neighborhood Revitalization Program. We've worked on building up a webpage on our website for contractors or renovation resources that will probably go live at the end of this week. And then also just the ongoing social media posts, emails to assist in promotion of housing resources. And so the big one that we've really been exploring and promoting is the NCK Homeownership Program, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that, especially if you work at a bank. But when I started, only 2 out of 12 spots had been awarded, and as of today, 7 out of 12 spots have been awarded. And so that's been really cool to see because that's a lot compared to the beginning of the summer. And so it's been cool to see that the promotion that we're doing is working, and that this really is a helpful resource for people, and that it's making home buying a possibility for people. And then 5 of these projects have been Belleville homes, and then 2 other in Republic County communities. And then you can kind of look at the breakdown of the prices and the breakdown of the grants versus the down payment loan assistance. And there still are 5 spots available, so that is still an option for people. And like I said, that will run until the end of August. And this promotion was similar to everything else. We did it on Facebook, MailChimp, our website, newspaper, radio, things like that. And we promoted this in collaboration with our housing survey and the Home Expo. So those 3 things were kind of all in tandem because they all kind of go hand in hand. And so we've been really excited with the results that we've seen throughout this summer. It seems like it's been a really great resource for people, and hopefully the rest of those spots will get filled. And then this is just kind of another one of our general promo things, our most recent one. Okay, so now that I've kind of talked about what I've done this summer and what I found and things like that, here's some potential action items that I think would be helpful for the county to consider moving forward. And I won't go through all of them. I think a landlord meeting workshop would be super helpful for landlords who maybe struggle with bad renters because they don't know how to check references or they don't know how to check credit scores or things like that. And so doing that for people might help them not only improve their properties if needed, but also improve the kind of people that they're attracting to their properties. And then also the continued utilization of the land bank. It's something that's fairly new, but it's something that has shown to be super successful for other rural communities, and I think moving forward it'll be something that's successful and helpful here as well. And then the last 2 things, I encourage apprenticeships or internships for HVAC, electrical, or housing trades, because as I was saying, contractors are kind of they're limited around here, and we need more of that type of work around here, and I think it would help make home building a more feasible option for people, and so that would be something to look into. And also a formal housing study. We looked and visited with Norton County, and we saw that they did a formal housing study, and if you look at these questions, any of these 5 questions, and ask yourself one of them, what would it look like if we provided the catalyst to convert 15 dilapidated homes to move-in ready, affordable condition for first-time homebuyers within 5 years? And how you really assess that, or really assess how to begin to answer any of these questions, is through a formal housing study. And as I said, we talked with Norton County, and they did one, and it was very successful for them. It was funded by the Norton County Economic Development and also the Norton County Community Foundation. And what this does is it classifies and values the existing housing stock and then develops a proposed incentive plan moving forward based on the needs of your community. And so it really is tailored towards your community and just helps you understand, okay, moving forward, how can we begin to combat this housing problem? Yes?
Who did that for them? Which agency?
It was a lady at Kearney. I'm not sure on her name though.
Okay. I was curious if it was. And then we'd done Hayes before, and I didn't know we had done hers, so.
We have their information though.
Okay, good.
And that was done this past year. So it's fairly new for them, the different format for that.
Yeah, and a lot of their projects are still they're still ongoing, and some of them are, you know, kind of future projections, but they kind of base it, okay, what can we do now, but what could be a possibility in the future, and it's been really interesting to see that, and just how, talking with the economic development director over there, the positive impact that community has already seen from that. So the last thing, this is just kind of my overall takeaways from a lot of what I've learned throughout the summer. And I kind of split this up into pros and cons to show that housing is a very complicated issue, and it is multifaceted. It's very multifaceted, and there is always a flip side to something. And so, for example, this first one is that there is a high demand for rentals, and that's a good thing. It shows that people are wanting to move here, that is in demand. But the reason why there's a high demand for rentals is because there's also a small number of homes on the market. Because if you ask people, as our survey showed, most people do not prefer to rent. They prefer to own homes, but since there is such a limited housing stock, people are resorting to renting. And then moving down to the second one, like I said, there's a high demand for market rate rentals. But on the flip side of that, there are Section 8 and Section 42 housing units that are sitting vacant that could be occupied by people who are living in market rate rentals in order to free up space for people who do not qualify for Section 8 or Section 42 housing. And then the next one is that there's a high demand for rural quality of life. And like I said, we've been seeing that with COVID and people wanting to make that transition from big city living to small town life. But there's not a large housing stock to support that transition. And then there's also demand for renovations and some home building, but we find that there's a limited number of contractors. There's limited access to land. It's hard to just find a plot of land to build a house on. And there's also limited wages, and home building really is not a feasible option for a lot of people. And then the next one is that people are able to age in place with the help of home health agencies, but on the flip side of that, if they want to downsize and remain in the community, there's limited options. And not to mention, while they're aging in place, they may be living in a 3 to 4 bedroom home that could be occupied by a family that's not able to move into that house because the people currently living in this house do not have the option to downsize. And then the last one is that there are a lot of programs in this county that help people in terms of housing, homeownership, rental assistance, things like that, such as Neighborhood Revitalization, NCK Homeownership Program, the Belleville Land Bank, nuisance abatement, and other regional programs. But it's not enough. We could utilize more programs that support home renovations, and not all cities in the counties have land banks or code enforcement. And so this shows that we're taking steps in the right direction, but we're not quite where we need to be yet. And so that is just kind of my overall takeaways. It's been a really fun summer. I've learned a lot. Does anybody have any questions?
Go back to that pros and cons there, okay? So the reason people that could